Today on Bottles from the Deep, curious pike, frisky toads, sunken forests, strange bottles, and a revolver. Today we're in one of our wonderful local lochs. It's amphibian mating season and there's lots of frisky male toads around looking for a mate. We come across the amazing alien-like root system of the lily pad plant. You can see the fresh shoots have been nibbled and the whole place has been excavated by the beavers trying to get a fresh green shoot of the lily pad leaves. We love how the bright green leaves punctuate the loch floor. The first bottle appears in the mud, and it's some kind of First World War era fizzy drink and fairly local. Then we come across a fairly common find for us, which is the Victorian shoes and boots. This one's quite an interesting one, quite well preserved. Now, because of this loch situation next to a road, we often find a huge amount of these GPO insulators in the loch. Over the years, I imagine the engineers were replacing these and just lobbing the old ones into the loch to get rid of them. And a long-time friend of the channel are these Gordon's gin bottle seals. We've still yet to find a whole Gordon's gin bottle, but we'll keep hunting. One of the fascinating facts about this loch is that it was artificially raised in about 1830, and so much of what we see on the loch floor is actually the root systems of an old forest. We've even seen freshwater eels make their homes in the root systems of these old trees. We come across an interesting insulator we haven't seen before, with a sort of threaded top and two terminals appearing in the centre of it. In this loch you might get the sense that you're being watched, and that's because there are lots and lots of curious pike who like to appear and see what you're doing. This one being a particularly large example. I'm glad I'm not a small fish at this point. It's always worth having a little look in the reeds at the end of this loch, because a lot of the bottles will actually bob and get blown down and just sink into the reeds. We see an old beer bottle there and reach out to get it when two frisky male toads think that my glove resembles a female and try to mount me. I came across this interesting piece of old blackened wood when suddenly in front of me a curious pike zips by and inspects what I'm up to, giving me a huge fright. This is a small stockpile of insulators I made on a previous trip. Here we can see an actual whole tree trunk with root system, which is just sitting on the loch floor, one of the original trees from this forest. This insulator even has its original copper wire still wrapped around it. I see something bittersweet in the water and I know exactly what it is, a broken cod bottle. It's got a fantastic motif of the fountain in Kirriemuir, and this bottle is by A.E. Farrell, who's a local beverage supplier in Kirriemuir. This cod is especially interesting because it is an unusual valve patent. It says Acme Patent No. 4 Soul Maker by Dan Rylands in Barnsley. We would absolutely love to find a whole one of these. We are skimming around the shallows now and we spot a beer bottle hiding under this stick. Take it out. And it's a very kind of robust design with a 3-part mould, lots of bubbles and a applied lip. Really nice one actually. Kind of very dark green, very bubbly. And some lovely kind of orange peely glass towards the base of the bottle as well. Then we come across this lovely little Aqua whiskey flask, and there was a distillery down the road and we know for a fact they were filling little flasks like this with the local whiskey. Unfortunately now the distillery has been built over by housing, but it's nice to have a memento of the times when the village had a lovely whiskey distillery. I think it'd be great if we saw some modern whiskey companies adopting this old style of whiskey flask again, because I think it's very iconic and fits the hand beautifully. We love the orange peely rough texture of the glass and the single bubble which sits in the body of the bottle. After one flask comes another, and we come across this amazing beer or whiskey flask in a sort of oval dark green design, and it's a 2-part moulder with a lovely thick glass base, got a plied lip, fits the hand fantastically, got some brilliant ripples as well. Then we see this very curious glassy object in the water and pick it up, and it's absolutely enormous. We turn it round and we see that it says Esso Lube on the side and instantly recognise it as a motor oil container. So this would have contained 1 quart of motor oil, and it's quite funny because it's next to a road, so you can imagine a car sort of spluttering along, being brought to its knees, and then the owner coming out and refilling it with the Esso Lube, bringing it back to life, and then lobbing the spent bottle into the Loch. This example probably dates from around the 1950s. We love how the design of this bottle resembles a sort of motoring component such as a prop shaft or CV joint. At this point we're innocently swimming along with an arm full of nice glass, and then we see something very curious in the water. We think, aha, a kid's cap gun or some kind of toy gun's been tossed in. We go to pick it up, but it's extremely heavy. Then a quick look at the handle, and we're starting to think this thing could be the real deal. At this point it's got a huge amount of corrosion on it, which we're going to have to kind of chip off before we can see the actual details of the weapon. The adrenaline was running pretty high at this point, because I have to say it's been a bit of a childhood dream to find a gun one day. On close examination of the grip when we take it out of the water, we can see there is the iconic Colt logo on the handle, so I think we're probably not dealing with a toy at this point. Well, that was a lovely dive today, a bit of a slow start, but some beautiful natural scenes, some great bottles found, some lubricants, a broken cod, 3-part mould, some whiskey flasks, and then we came across this, a Colt revolver. Thought it was a cap gun. I don't think it is, I think it's real. It's got the genuine Colt logo on the grip there. You can see the barrel. I hope it's not got any ammunition in. I'm going to be quite careful with it. I'll give it a wee clean up, and then we'll probably have to hand this in to the police because it is illegal in this country, and we'll clean it up and see what's what. With the police coming in less than 24 hours, we had a small window to clean this up and try and identify the weapon. With some lengthy research, we discovered this is in fact the Colt Commando 38 Special, which was a kind of budget version of the Colt Police Positive Special, which was commissioned by the US government for the US military in 1942 for the Second World War effort. It's actually a relatively rare firearm with only about 50,000 being made, and it's got this cool Bakelite grip and it fires the .38 special ammunition. This particular variety is the 4-inch edition, and I believe there is also a 2-inch. Unfortunately, its serial number has scratched off in the corrosion. Otherwise, it'd be really easy to trace all of its history. One of the coolest facts about this firearm is that it was heavily used by the semi-mythical Office of Strategic Services. The OSS were a highly secretive special operations force which operated from 1942 to 45, and they were the precursor to the CIA. This force of highly skilled and intelligent individuals operated deep behind enemy lines in World War II in Europe and Asia. This elite force had 2 main goals: to collect, analyse and disseminate foreign intelligence, and also to carry out unconventional warfare deep behind enemy lines. The units within the OSS had access to cutting-edge gadgets. Particularly interesting to us in the maritime unit was their pioneering use of the Lambertson rebreather, something we thought we could use in the lochs around here, and also an inflatable surfboard. We reckon this particular example might have been used by the British commandos and then was dropped in the Loch in a training exercise. Hopefully it wasn't anything more sinister. With finds such as this, of course we had to notify the police, who then sent a special firearms unit who took the gun away. The police are coming to pick it up in a minute, so this is the last time we'll see this thing, and I hope it has a good life wherever it's going. After advice from some of our friends over on Instagram, they said that we could possibly get the police to send it to a gunsmith who could deactivate it, and then it would have to get proofed by a proofing house, and then we could possibly keep it. However, it is in a very delicate state, so I don't know if the police have perhaps already destroyed it by now, but we're going to inquire and see what we can do.